When considering Aaliyah's track record, it's befitting that her name means the highest, most exalted one, the best. Her parents, Diane and Michael, decided on the name based on the high hopes and expectations they would have if they had a daughter. Her success as both a recording artist and actress actually makes the name of a self fulfilling prophecy. Aaliyah made her dreams come true. At 22, she not only had a very successful recording career, but also established herself as a motion picture actress and an accomplished businesswoman. From an early age, Aaliyah found satisfaction in her music. When she didn't win the youth vocal competition on Star Search as a preteen, she didn't let it deter her from continuing to sing. In fact, at age 11, she landed a 5 night stint performing with Gladys Knight in Las Vegas. Born in Brooklyn, New York, she was raised between Detroit and New York and eventually became a client with Abrams Artists. She graduated from Detroit Performing Arts School in 1997 with a 4.0 GPA. She credits her educational success to the support from her family, her mother, who was a teacher that homeschooled her, Dr. Sylvia Twyman, Dr. Denise Cotton, the Education Guidance Center, the Dr. Sneed, superintendent of Detroit schools, who approved Aaliyah's program with Dr. Cotton and her parents, and Jennifer Vandenbrooks, who assisted her in education. College was definitely in the plans. Aaliyah said, when I told my parents that I wanted to embark along this path, they were with me all the way. They were the ones who shuttled me back and forth to my vocal lessons, dance lessons, private guitar, play rehearsals, and then they even saw to it that the sets for the plays were transported to Mary Grove College in Michigan. What could be more important? In 94, at the age of 14, Aaliyah released her first album titled Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. And it was an instant success. The first single, Back and Forth, was a top 5 hit on Billboard Hot 100 and a number 1 R&B song. The follow-up single, which was a remake of the Isley Brothers single At Your Best You Are Love, reached the top 10, and it was a really big hit as well. I still remember how nervous I was right before Back and Forth came out, she says. I kept wondering if people would accept it. When it went gold, I had my answer, and it was just such an incredibly satisfying feeling. The acceptance of her music inspired other female teen singers to follow in her footsteps. Her taste in fashion still influences her fans and other artists. Teen Vogue once wrote Aaliyah set the prototype for the young female artist of the 90s. Her trademark baggy pants and oversized shirts reflect the same sense of style she developed as a child. She always loved wearing her father and brother's clothes. She says she was never going to wear a dress or carry a purse. As we know, that eventually changed. Just remember the MTV Awards when she won her award and took center stage in that Roberto Cavalli dress. Yeah, Woman is Fly. In '96, Aaliyah released her second album titled One in a Million. The first single, If Your Girl Only Knew, went double platinum and contains Timbaland's signature syncopated beats and Missy's poignant lyrics. Four-Page Letter, Hot Like Fire, The One I Gave My Heart To were also well-received singles on that album. I love working with Timbaland, Aaliyah says. He understands what I can do and always wants to try new things. We have great chemistry. We are musical soulmates. Rashad, her brother, wrote the video treatment for Four-Page Letter in 2 hours while studying at Hofstra University. Jermaine Dupri, Rodney Jerkins, Jay Dibbs, Daryl Simmons, KG, Vincent Herbert, Craig King were also involved with producing One in a Million. The album was multi-platinum and an international hit. Aaliyah performed throughout Europe, Japan, South Africa, and Tokyo concertgoers sang the words to all of her songs. In Paris, eager fans chanted her name before she took the stage. In '98, Aaliyah had a huge hit with Are You That Somebody from the Dr. Dolittle soundtrack. And another hit produced by Timbaland. The song was infectious, known for its sampling of baby crying. Fans particularly enjoyed the classy flamenco dance moves in the video that was choreographed by Fatima, who was a big choreographer at the time and still is very prominent in the industry today. They actually learned the dance by studying movies and going to a flamenco specialist. Also, that year, Aaliyah performed Journey to the Past for the motion picture Anastasia. Journey to the Past was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Song, and Aaliyah performed it on the Academy Awards that year, the year of Titanic. Aaliyah's motion picture debut in Romeo Must Die, the soundtrack was produced by Joel Silver for Warner Brothers, is spectacular by any standards. It co-starred Jet Li, and the film was a box office success and led to Aaliyah's huge record Try Again. The Romeo soundtrack sold millions of copies and spent weeks atop the Billboard soundtrack charts. And I remember what makes this even more extraordinary is that she was the executive producer for the soundtrack. Leah also had two other cuts on the record, including one with DMX. Um, that song, uh, Come Back in One Piece, Try Again, and Are You Feeling Me are some of my favorite songs of Aaliyah's all time, like hands down. Aaliyah was working on her third studio album by and selecting her next film roles from the many offers she was receiving. She was planning to continue her collaboration with Timbaland and was hoping to work with some more outstanding producers and artists. I studied for 1 month in preparation for the fight scene in Romeo. My brother Rashad and I took some martial arts classes when we were younger, so I had some knowledge of the process, she said. She talks about how amazing Jet Li was and just gushes about the movie. After the success of Romeo Must Die, Aaliyah starred along Stuart Townsend, Vincent Perez, and Lena Olin in the 2001 film Queen of the Damned. Aaliyah played the title role of Akasha in the supernatural adventure based on the third novel in Anne Rice's The Vampire Chronicles. Aaliyah read all the chronicles and was intrigued by vampiric information. She even had the opportunity to talk to Anne Rice, who was pleased that she received the role. Aaliyah worked very hard for this role with her speech instructor and mime specialist for movement. Both were referred to her by her beloved acting coach, Harold Guskin, who was on the set for RMD or Romeo Must Die. Joanne and W.B. Barron worked with her on the set for Queen of the Damned. Aaliyah's last studio album reflected her growth as a person and as an entertainer. The self-titled studio album Aaliyah was released in July 2001. There was a big gap between her second album and her third album, and that was in part to her branching out to do movie roles and also soundtrack singles, and I think that it really played to bolster her repertoire and also diversify her expertise and her sound. Not only so it wasn't a shock for fans, but also people saw that growth. So when uh, her self-titled album came out, it wasn't as much of a shock to people because they had already been listening to the progression of a new sound from her. Aaliyah debuted at number 2 on the US charts and sold over 2.4 million albums worldwide at the time. And Aaliyah featured mismatched singles We Need a Resolution, one of my favorite songs, More Than a Woman, another one of my favorite songs, and Rock the Boat, which was the last video that she filmed before her untimely passing. From a career standpoint, Aaliyah had obtained roles in, get this, because I've known this the whole time, but a lot of people kind of forget about this. She had obtained roles for Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions, and of course that part I believe went to Jada Pinkett Smith. She was supposed to have the lead role for Honey, which went to Jessica Alba. She was supposed to play uh in Sparkle, who that movie got completely changed around. That was the movie with Whitney Houston. She actually was that the movie? Yeah. Um let's see. I think those were all the movies. Um yeah. So that's a bit of background on Aaliyah's career, just the cliff notes. I do want to talk a little more about uh Aaliyah in totality, how my associations with her, what I know about her, how I feel about her, um, and what impact she has on me, uh, how I've grown up with her. Also get into her impact in black music in general, her impact to women in R&B. There's so many things to unpack here, and I really want to get into it because I've anticipated this day for some time. Um, Knowing that the 20th anniversary would come, it's crazy because I specifically remember when she passed, and then I was a huge fan of hers. And over like the next month or so, just seeing all the outpouring of TV episodes and things like that, specials about her, it got me thinking how things would be 20 years from now, celebrating and remembering her, and if people would, and how the pictures would come out and things like that. And so it's such an interesting day for me because I always just wondered what this day would be like. And again, Aaliyah for me is a really Aaliyah's a hero to me. Aaliyah set a lot of trends, and she influenced a lot of people, and it makes me wonder where music would be today if she was still here. I'm gonna read a couple of articles that I found celebrating today, and different news outlets from CNN to NPR to Yahoo to Refinery 29. All of them released articles today for and about Aaliyah, and I find it very heartwarming, and I really appreciate it. I really do. So, Aaliyah, as this article is from CNN, Aaliyah rose to fame with a laid back, edgy style. Like so many who die young, Aaliyah is forever frozen in time, youthful, beautiful, and left with dreams unfulfilled. The singer and actress was 22 years old when the plane she was traveling on crashed soon after takeoff from the Bahamas on August 25th, 2001, killing her and 8 others aboard. The fascination with Aaliyah and her music have not abated in the two decades since the world tragically lost her. If anything, it has intensified as her catalog of music has been recently added to streaming services, which I'll get into, something fans have long been clamoring for. She was a mystery. She was a mystery when she was here, and in her absence, she's a mystery. The author of the new book, Baby Girl, better known as Aaliyah, says. Now she's an even bigger mystery, and people love a mystery. In some ways, Aaliyah is more famous now than she was prior to her death. Back then, she was a multi-platinum recording artist just embarking on an acting career. She had starred in the 2000 action film Romeo Must Die and was scheduled for a role in the Matrix sequels. We will never know the heights she may have accomplished. Now, what's left is her music, a seeming battle over her legacy within her family, and rehashing of her relationship with the singer R. Kelly during his trial on federal charges of racketeering and violating the Mann Act, an anti sex trafficking law. According to the trial testimony, the pair married when she was 15 using a fraudulent ID for the teen. Producer, actually, let me backtrack a little bit. TLC remembers her after she passed, and the woman that she was. People affectionately called her Baby Girl. Her tragic death coming hours after she completed filming the music video for the single Rock the Boat, in which she floats on the ocean like an ethereal angel, left fans grief stricken. That sorrow still lingers. She had her own thing going and she was growing bigger and bigger at the time of her loss, said T Boz from TLC. She had some swag, she had a fan base, and she touched people as well. She's so missed. Like TLC, Aaliyah cut a path in fashion with her baggy jeans and style of dress. A producer who worked on Aaliyah's very successful sophomore album told CNN the singer was in full control of her image and her art. He credits her continued appeal to her talent with and curiosity about her potential. What she could have been, he said. The fact that she brought so much style and flair and flavor into hip hop and R&B, then the fact that she was able to meander between those worlds seamlessly. Given how many artists have tried to emulate Aaliyah, often without giving proper credit, he's not surprised that a new generation of fans have gravitated to her music and want to know more about her. She was extremely relatable, and I think that's what this next generation is identifying with, the relatability, he said. That sort of tough girl, sweet girl mix. The writer of the book, Iandoli, said the singer deserves acclaim given her influence on the industry and ability to comfortably blend musical genres. You have something like trap soul now, or trap R&B, and or even rappers who just sing over hip hop and electronic beats. That all started with Aaliyah. Andoli noted how outspoken rapper Drake has been about Aaliyah's inspiration. He also sampled her music in 2010 and in 2010 penned a letter to her in honorary anniversary of her death as evidence of how she still remains influential. That is part of what inspired Iandoli to write the book. I felt like the world needed a book that detailed her beginnings of how, for 20 years thereafter, she's still a force. What made Aaliyah so special is more complicated than it seems. So I'm looking at an article from NPR that someone named Aisha Harris wrote, and I wonder how old she is. She says it was such a pleasurable experience being able to finally listen to Aaliyah's One in a Million album from beginning to end this past weekend. Her lifting vocals pouring smoothly through my Sonos speakers. This was a moment fans have been waiting on for years, as behind the scenes business wrangling has long kept the majority of her relatively small discography off most streaming platforms. And as of August 20th, just a few days ahead of the 20th anniversary of her death in a plane crash, It was finally here. Her second studio album available to enjoy and rewind and skip ahead through and immerse oneself in all its sonic glory. Her third and final studio album is set to arrive in the fall, and an equilibrium of sorts will have ultimately been restored. Because for far too long, only her first and most fraught album, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, had been widely available, a fact that felt like a slap in the face to her legacy. And I'll explain why. Um, if you have paid attention, the first album was released on Jive Records and it was mainly produced by R. Kelly. That there was no copyright restrictions for like Jive didn't had Jive has partnerships with streaming services to be able to release those bits of music. Her second album and third album were released off of Blackground Records. Blackground Records does not release any, has not as of right now, but will be releasing music to streaming services. So people like JoJo, her first two albums, some of Tony Braxton's albums, some of Tank's albums have not been on streaming services all these years because Blackground Records would not release them to streaming services. But that is about to change. So, in life, in death, as in life, Aaliyah has deserved better. But what exactly does better entail, especially within the last couple of years? Some things have become undeniably obvious. She deserved to have been better protected by those around her, to have had someone who saw the writing on the wall when a grown man, R. Kelly, was penning songs for a 14-year-old to sing as a come on to an older lover. The music industry shouldn't have swept the revelation of Kelly's illegal marriage to Aaliyah when she was just 15, or many other allegations that may have arisen over the years under the rug. It has been said many times before, but it really can't be overstated. One in a Million sounds as if it was predicting the future. Indeed, it sounds like now. In Timbaland's skittering production, Missy's staccato phrasing of the lyrics, and Aaliyah's mellifluous interpretation, you can hear the descendants that have followed in their wake. Drake, Jhené Aiko, Sid, Normani. Her various looks in the video were sleek, sexy, and mysterious as she donned low-rise pants, crop tops, and bras, and in one scene a silver eye patch that seemed to come straight from a sci-fi dystopia playbook. She seemed fully formed, utterly confident, and secure in her body. This was true in her other songs from that era as well. From If Your Girl Only Knew, a self-assured mid-tempo in which she boasts how she won't be no fool for a guy who's trying to cheat with her, to Are You That Somebody, an earworm where she insists on keeping a hookup on the low until he can prove he's serious. And if you were a young girl, a young black girl in the 90s, like I was, of course, you probably were going to look at her and be struck by how cool she seemed without thinking twice about it. You'd assume she was a grown woman because if you were below the age of 12, everyone older than you seems ancient. And what young person is able to assert that much control? Yet she wasn't even 18 when she recorded One in a Million. That's what made her special. She stood out from the balladeers of the era, the Mariahs, Whitneys, and Vogues, and the teen pop stars, Brandy, Britney, Christina, in part because she seemed in command without needing to do too much. Her theatrics were subdued and contained, more slinky and less in your face. In hindsight, though, I've begun to wonder what it meant that she was introduced to the world as being fully formed, despite being a young teenager, an age where everyone is still trying to figure themselves out, and usually awkwardly so. she really, I mean, when I was younger than her, I'm 10 years younger than her. So when I was growing up, uh, I mean, yeah, I definitely thought about like yeah, she looks and seems so much older than what I knew she was, and I kind of found that strange, but at the same time, it wasn't anything. I thought it was normal. And then you get to the by the time I was a little older with Brittany and Christina, I started to realize the same thing happening with them. But with Aaliyah, I still didn't think anything of it because mentally and the way she carried herself was very mature. Um, Even though she still was being corrupted by the music industry with being over sexualized, she owned her sexuality. Is the way that I feel. Female teen pop stars usually emerge with a hint of innocence baked into their public persona, well, in Hollywood, even as they playfully suggest their own sexuality and fuel many a boy's or man's sexual fantasy. Britney Spears, like I was just saying, is the prototypical example here. The schoolgirl outfit and pigtails in Baby One More Time, the infamous Rolling Stone cover with lingerie and stuffed Teletubby. This was also true of Spears' contemporaries in the 90s and early 2000s. From Christina Aguilera to Mandy Moore to Jessica Simpson, the playbook for the biggest of those stars seemed to be this: break out by towing the line between virginal and sexy and piss off religious groups and middle class suburban parents in the process. Then, a couple years later, when you're in your late teens or early 20s, enter your mature period, i.e., going full on sex kitten. Suggest a sweaty dance orgy in your video, get dirty, get blamed for corrupting America's tweens. Aaliyah was rarely granted the opportunity to display that kind of innocence. She was branded as mature out the gate. From beginning her career, the dichotomy between her actual and perceived age was integral to her image. It was right there in the title of the debut album, in the lyrics of that song, where she seductively coos that age ain't nothing but a number. Throwing down ain't nothing but a thing. In early interviews, her exact age was usually treated as a jokey open secret. I won't reveal it, but I'm in my teens. I'm still in high school. I don't tell my age. It's a secret. She'd coyly respond with a giggle and a smile when asked about how old she was. Clashing with the acknowledgement of her youth was how Kelly and her management team played down that crucial facet of her age in the way she swaggered and sauntered in those baggy outfits, dark sunglasses, and the swoop of the hair draped over her one eye as if it were a neo-noir femme fatale from the hood. Veronica Lake was a frequent reference point for critics describing her look and mysterious aura. The public pretty much accepted and played along with it. And Billboard's review of Age Ain't Nothing But a Number described her as an urban teenage siren. A review in the Washington Post held her up as a refreshing divergence from other teen pop stars of the moment because, unlike them, she doesn't try to assume emotions she's never felt or take on material outside her range of experience, implying that the image of Aaliyah as a fully sexualized woman, not a 15-year-old girl with experience going all the way, had been so strong at the time as to have been normalized and etched in stone. When that's the public's first impression of you in this business, there's ostensibly no going back. And so she didn't. Instead, she continued to build upon that persona while leaving Kelly behind. If One in a Million largely excused the ickiness that lies at the core of Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, it's because that Singali wasn't involved and Aaliyah was a little bit older. Still, there's that tension and the looming sadness over the thought that the singer was forced to grow up too soon. The evolution from Age era to the evolution from age era Aaliyah to one in a million era Aaliyah wasn't such a huge leap stylistically. She was still being put forth and received as more experienced in her counterparts, and comparisons to Janet, who by then had fully transitioned into her uber sexual Janet era, began to surface. It's still illegal to act on the thought of Aaliyah's sexuality, Dream Hampton wrote in her contemporary review of One in a Million, while noting that since her debut, the singer had encouraged Lolita fantasies. Hampton would later go on to executive produce the damning and watershed docuseries Surviving R. Kelly. In the video for the title track, her love interest is Genuine, the R&B singer who's nearly a decade older than her. Years later, Timbaland, who was 23 when he first met 16-year-old Aaliyah, would admit in an interview that he was in love with her and had to fight his control. It had to fight to control his attraction to her. By all accounts, their friendship remained platonic and professional. Aaliyah's was a different trapping of fame as a teenage female pop star. Instead of dodging invasive questions about whether or not she was a virgin or if she'd gotten a boob job, she dodged questions about an illegal marriage to a much older man, while few seemed disturbed by the fact that this was even a question to be asked in the first place. Most interviewers, in fact, seemed titillated by it. Neither scenario is a healthy one for a young girl to have to deal with, but at least in the case of Aaliyah, the divide seems stark. To the public, white girlhood was something to be fiercely protected and saved from corruption. Black girlhood, black innocence, cannot even be comprehended. And when black girlhood isn't fathomed, it's not protected. As the many accounts from the young girls and women featured in Surviving R. Kelly made clear. And yet there's a narrative of resilience that can be gleaned from One in a Million. One that unearths power in the singer's creative choices over her huge image and sound post Kelly. She seemingly took the parts that felt like the most herself, the air of mystery, the laid back vibes, and reworked them to help pioneer a new way forward in pop and R&B. Her boldness feels less put upon and more natural, like the musings of the older teenager, budding young adult she was at the time, especially on an earnest track like 4 Page Letter. I remember what it was like to listen to that. I was still young, but I had older family members that were in their older teens, and like they just put me on. It was all I listened to. Like Aaliyah was for me such a huge inspiration, not just stylistically, but musically too. Like the tragedy of Aaliyah is there are so many what ifs that will forever remain unresolved. The upside is that at least professionally, she managed to persevere in spite of the many people and institutions that failed her personally. Her albums deserve to be heard in that way. And her legacy deserves to be remembered in that way too. I don't know if y'all seen there's a clip going viral of Aaliyah appearing on 106 in Park on the 21st, which was 4 days before she passed. And in the video, the then 22 year, she would have been 42 year old singer is just as you remember her, confident, yet a little soft spoken, stunning, yet understated and funny without intentionally pandering for laughs. The context couldn't get more early 2000s. AJ and Free seemed just as enamored with Aaliyah as her fans were. Free described her as a superstar with a platinum voice and a heart of gold. It's an apt summary of why Aaliyah was so beloved. I was born January 16th, 1989. She was born January 16th, 1979. So I was 12 when she passed away. She was 22. And she was one of my favorite singers, and I was so enamored that like I took it pretty hard. And I watched that episode of 106 in Park. So it was really strange, and I couldn't understand that 3 days later she was gone. That actually was the last TV interview that she did before she died. But we got to see her candid, casual, relatable, while also being the effortless superstar we always wanted her to be and knew her to be. And that's how I'll always remember her. I don't want to remember her for the stuff that was said and the information that's being put out there with the R. Kelly trial and that whole situation. I don't even care. I love her for the impact she made on music, her art, her sound, her voice, her beauty inside and out, her influence. I don't care about this chick who wrote this damn book. Uh, Goodness, what's it called? Baby girl, better known as Aaliyah. Some white girl who wrote the book. I don't even know if I want to read the book as a fan. I just don't know. I'm very protective of Aaliyah. I'm very protective of Aaliyah's family, and I always side with what they want. Like even if they didn't want her music being put out, I would support that. Seriously. However, I am very, very happy that her music is on Spotify. One in a Million has now been released as of last week on Spotify, and coming this fall, the self-titled third studio album Aaliyah will be released to streaming services as well. There seems to be some back and forth and confusion over what how that will play out, if it's going to last or what. We don't know, but at least for now it's out there. Aaliyah's posthumous album, or some people like to call it her fourth studio album, whatever you want to call it, um, was a very healing album for me. And I treated it, I was such, still like wishing that she was here. I treated it as if it was her fourth album. It was that special to me. They had extra photos in it, photos that I knew wasn't all from, the era of the third studio album. I felt it very special and warming, and it kind of helped me grieve through the process. So I really appreciate that album, even though I wish there was more from it, because we know that there's other unreleased music out there that got released over the years and worked into other people's songs and things like that. I mean, it could still get put out. We have to see though. These are some of my favorite Aaliyah songs, scrolling through the bottom if you happen to see it down there. So there's this article from CNN talking about the influence that she left on style. And she left a hell of an influence on style. I mean, look at this photo. The specs, the hair, the wrap, the tank top, the car behind it. And that's from this photo's from the One in a Million shoot. If you had the CD like I did, it was in the booklet. And I love the shade of the lipstick that she had on. It's just something about this photos was one of my favorite photos from her. And her style was just impeccable. No one could touch her. Her style was just no one can compare. Seriously. Aaliyah's velvety smooth vocals redefined R&B in the 1990s. Her sporty edgy style celebrated individuality in a decade that saw the rise of matchy pop groups. During her all too short career, the singer and actress, full name Aaliyah Dana Houghton, epitomized the era's street style in Tommy Hilfiger crop tops, low slung baggy pants, and utility jumpsuits. But she also mixed in darker futuristic undertones with glossy vinyl jackets and pants, wide chokers, and black lipstick. She even went full vampire in one of my favorite movies of all time, largely because of her. For the 2002 gothic horror movie Queen of the Damned, donning regal headgear, and an intricate high collared chest piece while ripping out a still beating heart. With today marking 20 years since her death, and every time this day comes, I spend the whole day listening to her music. Every time I see 825, I automatically think of Aaliyah. Some of Aaliyah's discography, long absent from streaming services, has finally arrived on platforms Spotify and Apple Music amid an ongoing fight to control her legacy. And with a 1990s and Y2K fashion revival currently underway, now is also an opportune time to revisit her style legacy. Derek Lee was a stylist who began working with Aaliyah before the release of her sophomore album in '96. Her style, he said, was hard and soft at the same time. It's masculine but feminine. I see her style in most celebrities today. Any girl that you see that wears baggy pants and a little crop top is still sexy. And that's Aaliyah all day long. I see it in certain billionaire girls, he added without naming names. Iconic Aaliyah looks have been directly replicated over the years. AKA FKA Twigs paid homage to the R&B singer's turn as the bloodlusting vampiric Queen Akasha in her video 2 Weeks. In 2013, Zendaya sported a familiar red, white, and blue Tommy Hilfiger outfit at a charity event. Keke Palmer, Kim Kardashian, and countless fans have worn the glittering bikini top, belt, and choker Aaliyah made famous in the music video Try Again from the Romeo Must Die soundtrack. To Lee, no one could hold a candle to Aaliyah when she released that video, which won 2 MTV Music Video Awards that year. She just messed it up for anybody else who wanted to wear anything from that Dolce and Gabbana line that particular time. And I'm sorry that I don't have any Queen Akasha photos to put up here. I don't know why I didn't think to put any up because those are some of my favorite photos of her. They talk about the style impact that she had on music, but I also know that she had an impact on music as far as like she left a void. She was the trendsetter. She was the one who, like, okay, so Brandy, her first studio album came out several months after Aaliyah's album, but she got a lot of her inspiration and confidence from Aaliyah and her first album, and her style, her image, her sound, the way that she did her ad libs and runs. Like, Brandy was on that shit, and Brandy was inspired and influenced by it. And Brandy followed suit. Brandy had a successful career because of that, because of those early days. Her style was her need and want and hunger for her own distinct vibe. Speaking of Brandy, came from Aaliyah setting the precedent of, you can be who you are and incorporate it into your music, and you can be tomboyish. You can don't have to be girly all the time. And over the years, Brandy learned to. They call her the human beatbox because for a reason. She literally is a human instrument with her voice, and she can make sounds that you would think is an instrument, and it really is not. I would like to think that she got the inspiration to further her vocal training and her voice, and uh, test out new things if from Aaliyah. Aaliyah tried a lot of sounds and risks, especially towards the end of her career, and it wasn't anything that anyone batted an eye at because they expected it from her. She was always trying new things. She was really good friends with the lead singer from Korn, and he inspired a lot of her later music towards the end of her career, which a lot of people don't even know. But yeah, she had a very wide, eclectic taste in music, and if you listen to her last album, you can definitely get a taste of that. And that's only a taste of what could have been from her. It's just every August 25th that goes through my head is what could have been, and I try so hard to imagine it. And one can't, and I end up just taking solace in her music, and the people that have filled in the void and taken her place. At the time she was of her passing, she was engaged to Damon Dash, who was uh, co-owner of Rockefeller Records along with Jay-Z. And if you know, Jay-Z and Beyonce are together, and around that time, uh, Aaliyah was Jay-Z and Damon Dash wanted Aaliyah, but Aaliyah did not like Jay-Z. She liked Damon. They fell in love. They really genuinely loved each other. And I think because Aaliyah left that void, they just threw Beyonce in there. And Beyonce is what she is today. And why I'm saying that, because I can go to a whole lot of other things that some people might dub as conspiracy theories, whatever. But I really think Aaliyah would have been bigger than what Beyonce is today. I'm not saying that Aaliyah would have been anything like Beyonce, but I think that the early foundations of what Beyonce, what they wanted her to be, came from the trajectory that Aaliyah seemed to be on with how she was growing her style, and the path that her style seemed to be growing on, and she was becoming a little more feminine. Her sound and everything was changing, and it seemed like they just took Beyonce and just threw her in and just changed up the sound and the style a little bit to fit Beyonce a little more and the direction that she was coming from. But the foundations and the blueprint was there from Aaliyah. And some people can agree, some people can disagree, and that's fine. But it's clear without a doubt, everyone can agree that Aaliyah definitely influenced all of the female R&B slash pop singers that we've had from the mid 90s up until today. And she only lived on this planet for 22 years, 79 to 01. It's crazy. It's crazy for me now to think about the fact that I'm now older, 10 years older to be exact, than the time that she's lived on this planet. It's just weird. I remember when I was 22 and it was the 10-year anniversary of her passing. And I that was when I really started thinking about the 20th anniversary, because there was rumors that her music would be released and that new music was coming out, which never happened. But I'm still very grateful that other artists and the people that she worked with on the third studio album, um, Sean Garrett, uh, Playa, Static, like all those dudes that gave her really awesome music, and all the demos they made with her and for her. Um, a lot of those songs have come out, and they were a really dope sound. And I'm glad that those songs have come out because they've given me some kind of like, ooh, but it's still not enough. But I'll deal with it. It's like I'll listen to these songs forever. The impact that I think she had on music, like on black music, people can talk about the over sexualization, but at the same time, like they, gave her the whole "you're not white and virginal" and straddling that line. Yeah, you are, but you're black, so we're not going to give you the same credit. You have to be grown. She took that and ate it. And she said, "Okay, I already am. I'm smarter than all these bitches, and I know what the fuck I'm doing." And guess what? She did. Like she set the precedent. Britney and Christina looked up to Aaliyah. Again, I want to remind y'all that her music for her second studio album is on streaming services. I believe JoJo, Tony Braxton, Tank, their music will be too, from Black Brown Records. So that was a whole big shebang. Like JoJo's first studio albums weren't have not been on streaming services as well, because of the fact that Black Brown Records in general did not want any of its repertoire of any of its artists' music streamed to services at all. You still had to buy it physical, and that was it. I don't even know if they were making CDs anymore. Like that's how bad it was. Did y'all know that she was supposed to be in Honey? I think I mentioned. I think I tried to mention it before. I did, and Jessica Alba got the part. Yes. So today I've been listening to all Aaliyah tracks. I would be listening right now, but I don't want this video to get any kind of copyright issues. But soon as I get off of here, I will be listening to some Aaliyah again, because that's how much I literally love her. Also, September 10th, the Aaliyah catalog will be released. The Aaliyah catalog has all of her studio albums in the physical vinyl, CD, however you want it, extra different little pieces of goodies, gems, you know, and it's on blackgroundrecords.net that you can find this stuff. So get it while it's hot and support baby girl.
Leon.